All right, everybody. Johnny Azir here, the best beard in radio, and we have a fantastic guest joining us, AJ Richards. And this is a guy I've been wanting to have on the show for quite a while, and he's got a very interesting take and very interesting mission when it comes to one of the greatest issues that face our community today, and that is the epidemic of warfighter suicide. And I want you to really focus on his actual perspective and actual approach to this, because it's really thinking outside the box and taking a big picture mentality to this epidemic that seemingly has been so difficult to get out ahead of. Let's go to the phones here and welcome AJ. AJ, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, good, Johnny. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's I know you're really busy, and it's an honor to have you on the program. Our good friend Ghost has been telling us so much about you, and she just absolutely loves you. And she basically told me that I had to have you on the program, or there's going to be hell to pay, and she's not a person you mess with, right?
That's true. I'm seeing the reason for the call now, and I totally dig it.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, why don't you take a real quick second here and just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners, and then we'll dive into this really cool project you're working on.
Yeah, for sure. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm 33 years old. I'm a father of 3 girls, and I'm blessed enough that I am still and will always be married to their mother. We've been through our challenges. I'm sure many listeners know what that's like, but we've been able to stick it out and keep going. So she was my high school sweetheart. So we've been together 16 years, so that's fantastic. Been through 2 deployments with me, and I deployed to my first deployment never actually ended up overseas. We were in Fort Carson, Colorado, getting ready to deploy, field artillery unit, and they came up the very last day of our field training, and instead of handing us our certificate of approval to go to combat, they said, we made it to Baghdad. You don't need to go. We don't need heavy artillery. The war is over.
Wow.
And so, and it was that same day, I guess they made it to Baghdad that night, because we were wrapping up to be able to get on the ships and go.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, they sent us to Fort Lewis, Washington, where we spent the remainder of the summer training ROTC and OCS cadets. We played Up 4. That was a good time, just running through the jungles of Fort Lewis and chasing down the officers there. That was a good time. And then my second deployment was from July of 2005 to July of 2006. And we spent 6 months in Camp Shelby, Mississippi, prepping to go overseas. That was from January to July. And then July we shipped to Ramadi, and we were in Ramadi 05 to 06. Then came home, and I've been playing the civilian game ever since. I did do a stint as private security in Mosul with SOC, Special Operations Consulting, in 2010 for about 3 months, and that was a total crap show, so I took off, came back home, and got back into civilian life. So that's so now I guess what I do now for a living is I own a CrossFit gym in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm also the founder and CEO of a head-to-head entertainment company called Rush Club, where we take athletes, put them head-to-head in specific weight classes, and we talked a little bit about this on one of the past shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ghost said you even watched the last one we did, or at least a little bit of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we put athletes head-to-head in weight classes. We pre-program the workout that they're going to do against each other, and then it's a race to finish. And because they're in weight classes, it's easy to program for that specific body type. So it's a really fun race and competition to watch. And then it evolves to where, because it's head-to-head, I now have athletes come on the stage and compete, or in the arena and compete, that are what we call adapted athletes. Athletes that are missing limbs or in wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
I created that division as another way to try to help our brothers and sisters that might have adaptations find purpose. So I thought, hey, if I give these guys an elite level competition to compete on, some of them might think that there's no purpose or reason to stay physically active. well, I'm going to have Derek White come on the stage and compete, and then people are going to be like, oh, hell, that's awesome. I have something I can work for.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have those divisions as well.
Yeah, and Derek is extremely well known and just an incredibly impressive guy. And I got to tell you, folks, this Rush Club stuff. When I first heard about it, I thought, that's kind of cool, and I get the purpose and meaning and everything behind it. But until you actually watch one of these events, I mean, it is intense. I mean, it's in your face. Yeah. I mean, it's to the level of like a UFC type competition. That intensity and that focus, it's so impressive.
Yeah. Well, in our last show, we had Derek White go head-to-head with our champion, Mike Gallardo, who's also an Army combat vet who lost his leg. And Mike's phenomenal. I mean, most people know Derek because of his personality, social media influence.
Right.
And Derek could, when you get to meet Derek in person, he's just like on his videos. He's absolutely genuine. He likes to joke around a lot, but he's totally genuine. Well, Mike's no different. He's just not as got as much exposure on social media, but Mike is a freaking animal. I mean, that guy could beat me in probably every single workout hands down, and I've got both my legs.
Right.
So Mike Gallardo is a phenomenal athlete. So, and we also discovered with those two going head to head, adaptive missing your leg above the knee and below the knee is two totally separate levels of ability. So now we have two divisions for the leg, adaptive upper above the knee and adaptive below the knee. So
yeah, and those guys, I mean, they took it to the wall and just absolutely burned it out. Things that like you said, being fully capable myself, I could never even dream of doing that stuff without ridiculous amounts of training. Just it blew me away.
Yeah, awesome, cool.
So
I enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely, I absolutely love it, and we'll talk a little bit more about Rush Club here in a little while. But I had to have you on today because you did this video, and it grabbed my attention because you're looking at things in a completely different perspective, and of course I'm referring to the epidemic of warfighter suicide, and now so much of the focus is on awareness and all these other the medical treatment. Alternative therapies are finally starting to come to light a little bit, and that's all absolutely wonderful. But I really am intrigued by this approach that you're taking to it. You want to walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So I've been, I guess, the last couple of years a student of just observing people and behaviors and patterns. I've done some of my own. Put myself through some coaching, to think in a different way, to kind of remove, if you think the way everybody looks at the world through a certain lens, and if we can change or have the ability to change the lens that we view the world through, we can see it from another perspective. And so when I've been watching people interact with their environment in certain ways, I've been able to start seeing different ways to view the world, right? So I read a book a while ago by an author named Simon Sinek, and he wrote a book called Starts With Why, and then he wrote a book that followed up called Leaders Eat Last. And in the book, he's talking about the different hormones that are in our body that we need, hormones that we need to be healthy, happy human beings. Things like adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, and even cortisol is your fight-or-flight hormone, or you're like, get out of here, or this is a bad environment hormone. These are all necessary that when we were created was put in our bodies to help us regulate. Oh, that felt good. I'm going to do more of that. Or that sucked. Don't touch that hot stove. I got a bunch of cortisol and some pain. I'm not going to do that, right? So we develop how we behave at its very basic core to those hormones. And that's all basically in the book. Well, the book was written specifically to focus on CEOs creating an environment people enjoyed being in rather than they hated to go to work in. But I was intrigued, and I started looking at that from the perspective of us as people, and specifically veterans, and our environment and the hormones. And I started realizing that it's the same. It's very similar. So when we're on deployment or when we're in the military, especially on deployment, we have a lot of adrenaline and dopamine flowing through our body daily, right? And then we have the serotonin because we have a connection with our brothers and sisters in arms. Like, we're connected.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all of these hormones flowing through us. We're like, yeah, this is great. And then we come home. And when we come home and we ETS, we get out of whatever unit we're in, whatever branch we're in, and now you're just another civilian. If you're not doing something to seek the distribution or the release of those hormones, no wonder you're miserable, especially when you come home from such a high active environment of that, right? So I came home as an example, and I started selling pest control door to door. Now, that's not a terrible job. I know people who make a really good living at that. Like, they work 6 months out of the year, and they make over $100,000. And so they take the rest of the year off. So it's not a bad job. And the company I worked for was amazing. But why was I so miserable? Well, it's because I'm walking down the street remembering myself as a warrior, and now I'm a pest control salesman. So I was comparing myself to somebody who had a purpose, right? I'm defending my country. I'm doing what I thought was right. I'm out there willing to take a bullet and die for the freedoms that we enjoy. And now I'm selling pest control. People are slamming their door in my face. They don't want me. Why are you bothering me? So all of these experiences, and I'm like, what is going on? And I remember thinking while walking from one door to the next, I used to be a warrior, and now I'm reduced to this.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it had nothing to do with the job itself. It was my relationship to it. So I also wasn't doing any training. I wasn't doing any physical activity that would release any adrenaline or dopamine. So what got me going down this path is observing what's going on and trying to find the solution. Why is veteran suicide so high? So I started looking at also like World War II in comparison to the other conflicts, and especially ours, right? World War II, there was almost 500,000 people killed in combat, 500,000 U.S. men, soldiers, Marines, sailors killed in combat. 500,000, over 500,000, or excuse me, almost 500,000. And my grandfather was a sniper in World War II with the 42nd Rainbow Division, and was with the guys who actually walked in to liberate Dachau, like the first advance party.
Wow.
And yeah, so they're the first to actually get eyes on this terror of concentration camps. And yet, when they came home, why wasn't the suicide rate off the charts? Like, what's the difference? So it gave me cause to start questioning. So I have a theory that what's missing for the veterans that end up taking their lives is purpose. In many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, that when we come home, we just don't have a reason, an existence, and when we don't have an existence, we're kind of wasting space, and we start deteriorating. When our grandfathers came home from World War II, they had a mission to build America, to make this the greatest country in the world. Like, we got sucker punched, and we're going to show you, not only do we whoop the world's ass, but now we're going to make this like the place that everybody wants to be. I mean, that's what other purpose can you possibly have to stand for, right? So my grandpa was a granite worker and builder and stuff like that, but it was for this overall purpose. So the next part was connection. And when we go, like, I think the statistics, like 1% of our country actually are warriors.
Right.
War fighters, 1% of our country. And so, I don't know about you, when I came home, I was the only person selling pest control who was a veteran. And so there I had no connection. Like, nobody could relate. When you came home from World War II, almost every person around you also served in one capacity or another. So I think connection was also handled, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you had the connection of, your brothers in arms and everything, but the community as a whole, everybody was involved in the war effort at some point, whether it was, selling war bonds or, going to work in the factories. I mean, everybody had a stake in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, even in the military units, right? You have guys that carry the weapons and they go out and kick the doors in. And then you have the guys that are serving you cow, but everybody has a role and you're still connected.
Right.
you might harass each other,